Minister of Environment, Waste Management and Climate Change, Honorable Mrs. Joanna Delanger, Junior Minister of the same ministry, ladies and gentlemen, members of the diplomatic corps, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, dear friends, all protocols observed, good afternoon. Warm welcome also to all the friends who are following us remotely from across the globe. I am Vikash Chadaya, Conservation Director of the Maurice Wildlife Foundation. But for this afternoon, I'm wearing another hat, that of your Master of Ceremony. So the context of today's gathering is to talk about the Maurice Wildlife Foundation, to celebrate the 40 years of the Maurice Wildlife Foundation. For those of you who don't know what we do or who we are, the Maurice Wildlife Foundation is a non-governmental organization concerned with conservation of plants, birds, reptiles, small insects, and on islands, restoring vegetation, restoring habitats, saving habitats from destruction. So our story goes back more than 40 years, as you learned today, and some of our rescues, most famous rescues, are those of the Mauritius kestrel, parakeet, pink pigeons, etc. So this book, which we are going to be launching today, is a book that should have been launched on the 7th of June, when we were celebrating our actual 40th anniversary. But because of some blips and delays here and there, which I won't go into, I don't know if Rodney Phillips will go into those, the book finally just came out recently. In fact, it's fairly hot off the press. And I was thinking whether it was a coincidence that the book comes now with a 6 months delay, or whether, I don't believe in coincidences, to be quite honest. I think the Prime Minister said the same thing yesterday. As you know, there's been a wind of change, to paraphrase Harold Macmillan. And allow me to congratulate l'Alliance Changement and the newly appointed Minister and Junior Minister. We are looking forward to working closely with you to take conservation to another level that is important. Now, let me tell you a little bit about this book. So soon after 1958, when the Dutch first landed in Mauritius, it's a problem. I think it's better to hear this story from the horse's mouth. Let me introduce you to Mr. Rodney Phillips. Yeah, I was going to talk about the book. I have had to summarize Rodney's very long CV. So Rodney Phillips has a BA Honours degree in English from Leicester University, UK, and a Master's degree in Linguistics from the University of Essex, UK. On his return to Mauritius, he was appointed Senior Lecturer in Applied Linguistics at the Mauritius Institute of Education for 9 years. During that period, he was a freelance journalist and newscaster at the Mauritius Broadcasting Corporation. Some of you may remember some of the films he did for the MCA. And those of you who are not as old as I am. And he then embarked on a career with the UNICEF, and after 25 years with that organization, he retired in Mauritius in 2007, and began writing articles for the Express newspaper as a guest columnist. His collection of articles were published in 2023 under the title That's Life in Mauritius and Beyond. Previous to that, he edited annual reports for companies in the private sector and wrote a major volume on the family and business history of Karinji and Company Limited. Over to you, Rodney. Tell us about it. Oh, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Master of Ceremony. Your introduction is a bit longer than what I have to say. So I should be very brief. So, Honorable Rajesh Bhagwan, the Minister of the Environment, Solid Waste Management, and Climate Change. And we welcome also the Honorable Joanna Delanger of the same ministry. Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Now this book, very heavy to lift by the way, this book is the work of many people. It has taken approximately 18 months to write, and it benefited enormously from the reviews of an editorial committee who were checking on the scientific accuracy of this book, both in terms of the visuals as well as the actual text. But the real protagonists of this book are not people. They are the last dying dodo, the soaring kestrel, the song of the olive white-eye, the rare endemic hibiscus flowering in the depths of the forest. The real protagonist is a petrel that flies all the way to Brazil and comes back to Round Island to breed. Extraordinary. Now, we agreed at the very beginning of the book that this book would not be just about the history of the organization. We agreed, and I proposed it, was agreed, that we observe a wider perspective and call it not a history, but the story of conservation in Mauritius and Rodriguez. Now, you know, the best stories are one that describe change. And the change that we describe is one of a pristine Mauritius, systematically destroyed, and then its gradual rehabilitation and recovery. And the story continues because the last chapter of this book projects a vision of what conservation in Mauritius may be like in the next 100 years. Now, at first glance, you may think this is a coffee table book. And you won't be wrong. A beautiful cover illustration by Daphne Duman. I don't know whether she's here. There are about 150, 160 pictures in this book. And of course, the superb page layout by Joël Mastracci, who I know is here today. But this is not just a picture book. Mr. Master of Ceremonies, can I ask the auditorium a question? Okay, if we had to hand this book to you now, sell it to you. If you got this book in your hand, what would be the first thing that you do? Open it, it's a good question, thank you. You don't count in the answers. What else would you do? Don't say get your money back, please. I know what you would do. You would flick through the pictures. But this is not a picture book. Well, it's partly a picture book, but not completely. What it is, thanks to conservation science and hands-on experience, I would describe this book as a reference. It's a resource. It's a mini encyclopedia on the flora and fauna of Mauritius and Rodriguez. So much more than a beautiful picture book. Now, the scientific and educational purpose of this book is also seen in the large number of appendices that are at the back of the book. And now I have to thank Professor Carl Jones and Dr. Vikash Kataya, who actually wrote these appendices. So they're very scientific. They will describe for you the details, the scientific Latin name of each of the species of flowers, birds, extinct, endemic, exotic, So at the back is so much information that you have in this book. And as this book is an anniversary publication, as Vikash has pointed out, this is a day of celebration. It may be 6 months late, but we can still celebrate. And I think Professor Jones is going to elaborate and expand on the various achievements of the Mauritian wildlife. But the work of a conservationist is never finished. It goes on. It goes on because there are new threats and new dangers, such as global warming, the loss of biodiversity, and of course, climate change. Right? So that work must go on. And your continued support is very important in the form of the ministry, in the form of the private sector that has played an enormous part in this success story, and you who continue to support all these different efforts. So with those few words, I'd like to thank the MC and all of you for being here today.
Thank you very much, Rodney, for taking us through the book. I must admit it's been great fun being with you and all the team to work on this book. The core team, as you mentioned, including yourself. David Chazal took a great interest in the book and drafting it and making sure it was all in order. Jean-Luc Garden, Joel, Betsy, who's somewhere here, and myself, meeting in Tim's office, and let's not forget Vanusha, who unfortunately can't be with us today, but who also played a key role in this book. So big applause to the drafting team. But far from Mauritius, we had somebody else who was kind of pulling some of the strings from a place called Wales. I'd like to introduce you to Professor Carl Jones. Carl Winfrey Jones, MB, born on 20th June 1954. He doesn't look it. He's a larger-than-life character. He's a conservation biologist who has been employed by Dodo Wildlife Conservation Trust since 1985 and a founding member of the Mauritian Wildlife Foundation in 1984. He's currently the scientific director of the organization. Additionally, he is chief scientist of the Dodo Wildlife Conservation Trust and an honorary professor in ecology and conservation biology at the University of East Anglia. Often outspoken on the importance of knowing your species and using intuition, empathy, and practical knowledge of the dogmatic education, Carl is best known for his work in recovering the Mauritius kestrel. Working in the Mauritius Mascarene Island since 1979, Jones has led 5 successful bird restoration projects where the starting population has numbered less than 12 individuals. As a consequence, Mauritius and Rodrigues have averted more bird extinctions than any other country. Carl has pioneered the use of ecological or taxon replacements to fill the ecological roles of extinct animals and successfully restored levels of endemic vegetation to previously denuded islands such as Long Island. Jones' work has been highlighted in several books such as Last Chance to See, The Song of the Dodo, and so on and so forth. He has also received several prizes, including the Nobel Prize in Conservation, the Indianapolis Prize. Carl, the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Rodney. Thank you, Vikash. You've already done part of my role for me. Anyway, I'm feeling quite emotional because we look back over 40 years and Rodney's celebrated the achievements of the Mauritian Wildlife Foundation. And it's quite interesting because in the Mauritian Wildlife Foundation we like to get on with the work. And we don't have many celebrations. But when it was mentioned that the 40th anniversary was coming up, we had a discussion. What should we do to mark it? And some people said, well, hang on, let's wait another 10 years and we can celebrate the 50th anniversary. And some of us said, hang on a minute, we might not be here, so let's do something for the 40th. And we asked Rodney to write about the work that we've been doing with the Mauritian Wildlife Foundation over the last 40 years, but to put it into context. And Rodney's done a tremendous job, not just looking at the work of one, but looking at conservation as a whole. It was right back to when the very first people set foot on Mauritius. And how Mauritius, we all think of Mauritius as a paradise. We love this island. And worldwide, people come here because it's such a beautiful island. But to ecologists, it's a disaster. It is known worldwide for the extinction of the Dodo, the last one was seen in 1662. But also a host of other species have disappeared. The amount of native forest has declined to just 2% of what it once was, and the remaining forest is in rather poor shape. But we don't want to be looking back and thinking about, well, we do want to be looking back and thinking about what we've lost. We've also got to think about what we can achieve. And how Mauritius is a wonderful example of what can happen if we put the resources into making a change, making the world a better place. I told you at the beginning that I'm feeling quite emotional. And just looking around, I can see many people who've worked with us over many decades, tirelessly working to try and save biodiversity here on Mauritius and Rodrigues. There are colleagues from Rodrigues here who I'm very pleased to see. And there are also colleagues who worked with us over the years and have now moved on to other jobs. Marcel, who works in the university, I remember him working with us when he was a teenager. There are also many other Mauritians who worked with us over the years. And while some of us in the Mauritian Wildlife Foundation may get the credit for the work that's happened, the credit lies with all those people who contributed over more than 4 decades to work on the critically endangered species here in Mauritius. We've had people from 42 different countries working in Mauritius as volunteers or interns. We've had over 1,000 people that have come to this program. And it's quite interesting, whenever I go to any scientific or conservation conference, people come up to me and they say, do you remember me? I worked here in 1980 something or 1990 something. And when we were compiling the book, we added up how many high degrees that we've done within the Mauritian Wildlife Foundation. I think it came to 49 or 50 PhD studies alone. Similar number of master studies. And of course many, many publications. And I tried to work out how many professors actually started their careers in Mauritius. I couldn't come up with a number, but it's over half a dozen people who worked with us, learned about conservation, and then went on to teach about how we should be looking after the planet and its resources. So we've sown seeds. We've sown seeds of what might be. And in recent years, there have been a number of accolades about some of the species we've saved. It's quite interesting that a few years ago, Mauritius kestrel became the national bird. And isn't that wonderful? You just think of it for a moment. When people talk about Mauritius, they think about the dodo and extinction. And people are sort of proud that the dodo was once here. But shouldn't we be celebrating success? Shouldn't we be looking forward to what we can achieve? So it's lovely that we have the kestrel, which was once the world's rarest bird. In the 1970s, it went down to just 4 known individuals. And today, it's not doing as well as we'd like, but we've certainly got hundreds of birds in the wild, which is better than extinction. Vikash pointed out that we'd saved many species from extinction, or species have probably avoided extinction as a result of our work. It is recognized by IUCN and others that without the conservation efforts here in Mauritius, there's a good chance we would have lost 5 species of birds, 4 species of reptiles, a fruit bat, and the number of plants is yet to be tallied up. It is probably in the region of about 20 plant species have also avoided extinction as a result of our work. I want you to think about that for a moment. We've helped avoid extinctions. And when you actually look at the number of species where extinction has apparently been averted, Mauritius is number 1 in the world. How often do you hear that? Very rarely. But Mauritius is showing the way forward about species conservation. We've saved more species than the Americans. That gives me great pleasure. And number 2 in the list of countries that have saved species is New Zealand. And over the years, we've been very lucky to have lots of New Zealanders that have come and helped us. And this has been one of the great things about the work of the Mauritius Wildlife Foundation, is we have embraced cooperation and collaboration. Too often in the world today, we see competition and people trying to achieve more than somebody else, rather than sort of bringing resources together and collaborating. I've always been a great believer in collaboration, and one of the great things the Mauritian Wildlife Foundation has done is acted as a catalyst, bringing various organisations together. Over the years, we've had organisations from New Zealand, North America, Canada, and Europe, Australia, all putting resources into helping our conservation. And it just shows that it can be done. But saving species is not enough. Saving species is just saving building blocks. And what we have to be doing is rebuilding whole systems. Unfortunately, many of the elements have disappeared, and there have been many extinctions. But we can still do a great deal. There are still many elements of the ecosystems that still survive. We can still learn how to rebuild systems. And in some cases, where species have gone forever, we can use ecological replacements. We've done this on Round Island, working with the government and with other organisations, bringing Algambra tortoises to the island to replace the extinct Mauritian tortoises. So we're beginning to see the reactivation of ecological interactions. This is a long-term job. We can't be thinking about 3- and 5-year projects. We're going to be looking ahead. It's wonderful that we celebrate 40 years. But that's only 1.5 generation times of a giant tortoise. Not even a generation time of some of our large forest trees. And to be able to achieve meaningful change, we need to be thinking long term. We need to be thinking about 100-year plans. Well, certainly 100-year visions. Nobody can plan for 100 years ahead because we don't know what's going to happen. But we can have a vision of what's achievable. And I think about what we've achieved in the last 40 years, and I think that in the next 100 years we can achieve a lot more. We've even in recent years been talking to various geneticists people working on genomes, talking about de-extinction. People want to bring back the Dodo. The technology isn't there, and it's unlikely that we could ever have something that was identical to the Dodo that became extinct. But we may have a facsimile of sorts. And I love to think that my children, or perhaps my grandchildren, may one day be releasing dodos in the forests of Mauritius. But I want us all to think about the future with great optimism. Mauritius is a tremendous country. We've achieved a huge amount over the years, and there's a lot more that we can still do. The future is bright. We have the building blocks for saving species and rebuilding systems. We're showing the way forward. And I look forward to the future when conservation in this country will actually become mainstream. And I must finish by thanking the British Wildlife Foundation and all the people in this room, but also the collaboration we have with the government that have helped us and supported us over the years, and also the help of international organisations. International organisations now look to Mauritius because of our successes in species conservation and in rebuilding ecosystems. Thank you very much.
And talk about the different successes of the organization, the different challenges. And I think never will so much be able to serve you by so many, and the so few are here now. You are on the islands, in the forest, at the captivating center, in retreats, doing all the hard work on the ground, at the sharpest end of conservation. So a big applause to our staff. Mr. Tim Taylor, President of the Mauritian Wildlife Foundation, for his speech. Taylor holds a BA Honours in Industrial Economics from Nottingham University. He worked in the United Kingdom until 1972 before returning to Mauritius and joining Rogers and Co. He became Chief Executive of Rogers in 1999, retiring in December 2006. He was then non-executive chairman of Rogers from 2007 to 2012. He serves as the chairman of Scott and Company Limited, one of Mauritius's oldest commercial concerns. He's past chairperson of the National Committee on Corporate Governance, a former president of the Mauritius Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and a former honorary consul of Norway in Mauritius. He has always had an interest in environmental and conservation issues and has been a member of the Council of the Mauritian Wildlife Foundation since 2006 and president since 2009.
Minister Rajesh Bhagwan, who I've known for many years, Minister Joanna Belmonte, welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I am not going to talk very long. My job is just to say thank you. Carl has already mentioned a lot, so I won't go through his list. I'm also going to say who has also helped in the preparation of this book. Let's start with conservation. You know, I don't know when you read the book you'll learn this, but in fact, this was kicked off by Sir Sigurd Rangalan back in the 1960s. He actually invited Peter Scott, who was a well-known naturalist in the UK, Stonebridge, to Mauritius, and to have a look at what could be done. And then some years later, Gerald Durrell from Jersey, set up Jersey Zoo and the Durrell Foundation. He then came and had a look at what could be done. He visited Grand Island and he realized there was a lot to be done. And then Carl came. It doesn't look much different, obviously. Saving birth is not very stressful. But he came. I think there were some hiccups to start with, though. I think a number of the birds had died in the end, it's not the last ones. But more lived than died. And as he said earlier, we now have hundreds of kestrels rather than the 4 that we started with. And as he also said, obviously this was a real teamwork, and this was the waffers. There's been over the years hundreds of waffers, I think, and they come both from Mauritius and from overseas, and they work in the forests in the week, and at weekends there was the Waff House in Black River, and goodness knows what used to go on there. But everybody seemed to have very, very happy memories of that Waff House. I would also like to mention some of the people who have led Mauritian wildlife in the past. I see Pierre Besaki somewhere. He was there he is. He was the CEO at one stage. Colin Hare, who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, he was president. He was there at the beginning when it was formed, and he was very much instrumental in the formation of Mauritian wildlife. Do I see his daughter? I do see his daughter. And then now, who do we have? We have Debbie, who has been there for many, many years, and we have Vikash. He's been there over 20 years. 28. Did you have any hair to start with? Yeah, very well. And we also have Nick Cole, who knows all about reptiles. Nick, where are you? There he is. Oh, no, he really does know all about reptiles. So all of these people have been very instrumental in what we've managed to achieve. But as Carl said, we work in the forests, and the forests are under the jurisdiction of the NPCS, National Parks and Conservation Services. Is there anyone from the NPCS here today? No, it doesn't matter what I say. No, they're not necessarily the easiest people to work with. We try very hard. We hope that Minister Bhagwan is going to help us in our efforts. But we work in their forests, and they are obviously very important to us, and they fall under the Ministry of Agriculture. The conservation has been going on for many, many years, and lots of people have had a big hand in this. So if we now move on to the book, you can see the book. You can't because see Carl. This was very much a labour of love. It took a long, long time. Here is the team that did it. I must say, I'm a bit of an imposter here, because I went to one meeting, and they had at least, how many meetings? 10, 15? They were using the Scott boardroom. That's how it was my contribution, but I wasn't actually in Mauritius for quite a lot of this time. The people involved was Jean-Luc, was Rodney, Debbie, Vanusha, Joel, Vikash. They were the key team, and they worked really, really hard. And then overseas, there was Carl sticking his oar in from time to time. They loved him some of the time, and other moments they loved him less. Yes, Rodney? Sorry, Carl. But he was helping on the scientific side, and Vikash also was helping on the scientific side. And Joelle, who you see here, she was very important, and she's here in a very nice dress, flowers. The plants are not endemic, she tells me, on her blouse. But she did the mise en page, and when you see the book, you'll see she did great work. And as Carl said, this book is many things. Yes, it looks good on your coffee table, if you have a coffee table. It is good to flick through. There's all sorts of pictures and interesting things to look at, but it's actually a good read. Rodney's got some talent when it comes to writing, and he's exercised this talent really very well. Thanks, Rodney. So it is a good read, and if you want it as a scientific reference book, it's also a scientific reference book, because everything that we have here, and did have, There's details of it all in the book. Lastly, when it comes to thanks, I'd like to thank the sponsors. Can we have the sponsors' names back up? Sim Finance, I have a great connection to. Kurimji, Annie is my next door neighbour. MCB, well, we all know that, and Scott will assist part of us. So they sponsored the actual cost of producing the book, which, needless to say, was quite considerable. But I think we're very happy with the result. I'd just like to finish to say that I'm now in my last month as the chairman of the Mauritian Wildlife. As you guys said, I've been there for 15 years. It doesn't feel like 15 years, probably does to them, but not to me. And as from the 1st of January, Eshan, if you like to stand up, Eshan Dalu, he is going to become the president. He's hosted by the council on Wednesday to be the new president of Mauritian Wildlife. I'd like to finish now. Many thanks for all of you for coming, and many thanks for listening to us all. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Tim. I do understand you stay on the board for a bit more, and we'll need to have your enthusiasm even after you're no longer chairman. However, I wanted to thank you for your commitment towards Mauritian Wildlife Foundation, and to the extent of turning up at some scientific meetings where genetics is being discussed. So quite a challenge for somebody who's from the business to be attending this high-level genetics meetings, but it just shows your commitment to the organization. And thank you so much for everything you've done for the Mauritian Wildlife Foundation. Our next speaker is somebody whose hard work is his hallmark. He has been variously referred to as a bulldozer. You know who he is? And more recently, I've heard him referring to himself as a cat or cat. So I don't know whether there's an additional strengths there, or I don't know the diminution of strength. This gentleman, who I'd never met before since yesterday, phoned me up in 2015. We didn't know each other. He took the pain of going to see a cousin who's a pharmacist in Rosehill to get my phone number. He phoned me on a Sunday morning, and we had a long conversation about bats. And this gentleman was in the opposition then, opposed the law that was coming up and opposed the killing of bats as a member of the opposition. There have been very few times that a member of opposition has contacted me about a conservation problem. I'm here referring to Mr. Honorable Roger Spagwan, who was elected as a member of parliament in constituency number 20, Beaubassin, which is here, this area, for the first time in 1983. Since then, he has been re-elected at every general election that has been held in that constituency of Mauritius. So he holds the record of 10 consecutive victories in the same constituency. He also holds the office of the Secretary General of the Mouvement Militant Mauricien, MMM, and as the result of the 2024 general elections, which we had last month, Honorable Bagwan was sworn in as Minister of Environment, Waste Management and Climate Change as part of the new Alliance du Changement government. He has also occupied the post of Minister of Environment in the 1990s, and we were working very closely with him at that period. And we are hoping to work with you more closely in your tenure. Mr. Bagwan, please take the floor.
Vikash, merci. I meet him, my very good friend. We met so friend before. my young and dynamic colleague, l'Union ministère dans la dérangée, Madame Déborah de Chaval, directrice exécutive de l'organisation CASH, mes collègues de la part collectivité, on va parler de mon ami, les membres du corps diplomatique, mesdames et messieurs, et les amis. Tout le monde s'assoit là, ceux qui côtoient, merci pour l'invitation. I would have never thought that I would have been engaged here as Minister of Environment 20 years after. At the time when you were celebrating 40th anniversary. Je suis évidemment très heureuse d'être parmi vous et rencontrer beaucoup d'amis que j'ai côtoyés dans le passé, à l'époque, même comme maire de Bassin aussi, nous avons eu des relations de travail, et aussi comme ministre, je vois en 1996, 1997 et de 2000 à 2005, où nous avons beaucoup travaillé ensemble et les résultats sont toujours là pour témoigner du bon travail qu'on a fait. Je suis heureux évidemment d'être parmi vous cet après-midi pour le lancement du Dodo, The Story of Conservation in Motion, écrit par dans le contexte du 40e anniversaire de la Maurice Wildlife Foundation depuis 1980. Avant même la création du département de l'environnement, le pays a témoigné de 40 ans de patience et de persévérance. 40 ans de vie en cours durant une année de fièvre. 40 ans de succès de vol. Et avant tout, et surtout, 40 ans de conviction et de passion inébranlable pour la défense de la nature. Je tiens donc d'abord à exprimer ma profonde reconnaissance envers la Maurice Wildlife Foundation, son engagement à l'ASAP, mais aussi cette reconnaissance ouverte toujours en faveur de la protection et de la conservation de la biodiversité unique et précieuse dans le pays. Je voudrais particulièrement rendre hommage à Tim Taylor et au docteur Partager, ainsi qu'à leurs prédécesseurs, sans oublier les scientifiques, le personnel et les volontaires, qui se sont relayés pour maintenir la vapeur pour accomplir ce travail remarquable. L'équipe passionnée de la Maurice Wildlife Foundation a joué un rôle crucial dans la préservation de nombreuses espèces végétales et animales au bord de l'extinction. Je tiens également à remercier le ministère de l'Agriculture et ses services, ainsi que les nombreuses organisations qui ont soutenu ce travail essentiel de conservation, de restauration des écosystèmes au fil des années. Le dodo, oiseau emblématique et endémique de Maurice. Le dodo, symbole de la folie, de l'inconscience humaine. Le dodo, un rappel douloureux de la fragilité des écosystèmes et des conséquences dévastatrices des actions humaines. Mesdames et messieurs, chers amis de la nature, la faune et la flore, la biodiversité sont confrontées à une crise sans précédent. Il est estimé que seulement 3% des écosystèmes mondiaux restent pleinement intacts. Le rapport Living Planet Environment 2024 révèle que la taille moyenne des populations de la faune a diminué de 73% et que 48% des 70 000 espèces animales étudiées sont confrontées à une diminution de leur population à cause de l'activité humaine. La perte capita est responsable de 85% des espèces menacées. Les Nations Unies ont identifié 5 principales causes liées à la perte de biodiversité, à savoir les changements dans l'utilisation des terres et des mers, l'exploitation des ressources naturelles, le réchauffement climatique, la production et la propagation des espèces invasives. Elle devrait ainsi inclure le braconnage, le commerce illicite des espèces menacées et la gloutonnerie humaine. L'île Maurice fait également face à ces défis considérables. Notre pays qui abrite l'une des flots les plus fragiles et menacés au monde, avec environ 89% des espèces végétales endémiques actuellement considérées comme menacées et 61 espèces indigènes de plantes déjà disparues. Maurice a été désigné par l'Union internationale pour la conservation de la nature, UICN, comme un centre de diversité végétale et fait partie de la zone de biodiversité exceptionnelle des îles des Mascareilles. Ce riche patrimoine est une source de fierté, mais aussi une responsabilité que nous devons assumer. C'est pourquoi le travail abattu par la Maurice Wildlife Foundation pour la conservation de la biodiversité et la restauration des écosystèmes est incommensurable. Le Dodo Legacy, The Story of Conservation in Mauritius de Netflix, retrace justement ce long et pénible combat, et ô combien exaltant pour les noms des amoureux de la nature. Un ouvrage qui devrait, à mon avis, être à la moins introspectif et inspirant. Je félicite donc Rodney pour son livre. Je souhaite que les lecteurs seront nombreux à le soutenir. Le nouveau gouvernement veut placer la protection de la nature au centre de nos décisions et nos actions. Comme l'a souligné le secrétaire général des Nations Unies, Antonio Guterres, la nature est le meilleur ami de l'humanité. Sans la nature, nous n'avons rien. Sans la nature, nous ne sommes rien. Le gouvernement du changement veut inscrire le droit à un environnement sain et à la protection de la nature dans la Constitution. L'intégration des droits de la nature inclura tous les écosystèmes et la biodiversité, avec l'objectif de faire que chaque citoyen un gardien de notre patrimoine naturel. Nous devons donc nous inspirer de l'histoire du Dodo pour bien comprendre que l'inconscience et l'inaction mènent à la destruction. C'est pour cela que Johanna et moi-même, avec l'aide de tous les amoureux de la nature, tous les amoureux de l'environnement, tous les soldats de l'environnement, que ce soit ONG, que ce soit la société civile, que ce soit les collectivités, que ce soit les différents départements du gouvernement. Nous avons le devoir de point de vue, que je crois bien citoyen. Ensemble, je crois que nous pouvons faire de l'île Maurice une île meilleure, une île écologique, où le droit de la nature, le droit à la biodiversité, le droit à l'environnement soit un droit respecté et reconnu. C'est le message que nous voulons, en tant que gouvernement, traverser. La Mauritian Wildlife, les ONG, même le public en général, la société civile, sont partenaires dans ce grand combat et que je sais, en tant que ministre et Johanna avec moi, que nous pouvons compter sur vous pour emmener à bien ce combat. Et nous avons plusieurs années devant nous, ensemble, moi-même, de la jeunesse, Johanna, et avec vous, d'arriver à bon port. Voilà que mon message cet après-midi en tant que nouveau ministre de l'Environnement, comme un partenaire de votre association, de votre organisation, côtoyer, que j'ai connu, que vous dites reconnu l'ensemble du territoire, et nous voulons aussi féliciter les amis de Rodney parce que nous travaillons aussi, c'est un travail exceptionnel. Il nous faut voir de la journée sur les îlots, sur les îles, que ce soit à Garriga, que ce soit à Saint-Brando, là aussi nous avons la responsabilité d'aller voir s'il y a des problèmes qui s'enfoncent à la biodiversité. Voilà que le commissaire. Merci, bravo. Thank you very much, Carl, for what you have done over the years for the country. Mauritius owes you a lot. The young generation.
Bélanger, Junior Minister of Environment, Waste Management and Climate Change. You referred to her in your speech. I think you very long and dynamic. I think you alluded to her being a Lamborghini and a Ferrari in the past few days. But anyway, please join us, Madam. And I have a special message for you, Honourable Minister. I know when you were Minister previously, you pushed forward the survey of caves pollution. Yes. Yes, unfortunately there's nothing much in terms of protection of caves. Dr. Florence asked even we need to push for the caves. I would now like to invite our VIPs to unveil the book which we've heard so much about. May I ask Mr. Rodney Phillips, Tim, Carl, and Debbie to come to the front, please. Yes.